Perhaps your mind is currently echoing with the frantic, rhythmic chirping of 100 invisible birds, each one calling for your attention as if your response were the only thing keeping the world from collapsing. Even here, in the quiet of this late hour, you might feel a sharp, restless energy behind your eyes, a persistent tugging that demands you keep track of every unfinished task, every unspoken worry, and every potential danger that might arrive when the sun comes up. It is a lonely, exhausting way to live, feeling as though you must be the constant gatekeeper of your own consciousness, never daring to stop, never daring to let the silence in, lest the birds take over entirely. The room you are in is settling, the air cooling as the night deepens, and the soft textured shadows of your curtains are folding into the corners of the walls. There is a gentle stillness waiting for you, a space that does not require you to name it, or manage it, or explain it to anyone. You are not broken because your mind refuses to land. You are not a failure because you have spent your day feeding a storm of static that now refuses to quiet down. Your intention to find peace is a beautiful, necessary impulse. And tonight, we are not going to fight the birds. We are going to learn how to stop setting a table for them. You have nothing to perform, nothing to prove, and no one to impress in the darkness. You are simply a traveler who has reached a high, silent place, and you are finally allowed to put down the heavy, crumb-filled bag you have been dragging. You may have believed that if you stop thinking, you will lose your grip on reality, or that if you stop monitoring your worries, you will be caught unprepared by the future. This is the paradox that keeps you awake. You believe your vigilance is a form of safety, but it is actually a form of captivity. The Buddhist way offers a different path, a gentle shift in perspective that does not demand you kill the noise, but only that you stop participating in the creation of it. The mind is intended to be a vast, open sky, capable of holding the clouds as they pass. But you have mistaken the circling birds for the sky itself. You are not the frantic movement, and you are not the noise. You are the space that holds them, and you are safe enough to stop grabbing at the air. If it feels right, let your breath begin to lengthen, not to force a state of calm, but just to feel the simple, rhythmic motion of your own life continuing without your active direction. You do not have to count your breaths. You do not have to check if you are doing it perfectly. The body knows exactly how to settle when it is finally given permission to exist without the need for constant mental maintenance. You have been walking through a thick, tangled forest of your own expectations, convinced that the way out is to think your way through the branches, but the way out is simply to stand still. You do not have to solve your whole life tonight. You do not have to reconcile the past or secure the future before you close your eyes. The mountain remains. A mountain whether the birds are circling or resting, and you remain yourself, entire and whole, whether your thoughts are loud or hushed. Let the weight of your day begin to slide away from your shoulders, feeling the surface beneath you as if it were the solid, unmoving granite of a high, quiet peak. You are not meant to carry the whole world in your mind. You are meant to walk through it, to feel the cool air on your skin, and to eventually find a place where you can be still. Notice the sensation of your hands resting by your sides. They have been busy all day, reaching, grasping, and holding. Give them the freedom to simply be heavy, to be empty, to be soft. There is no task waiting for you in the dark. There is no audit of your progress. There is only the slow, natural cooling of the night and the steady, grounding presence of the earth beneath your bed. You are not here to improve yourself. You are here to remember what it feels like to stop trying to be the director of a play that has no script. Maybe you are used to the idea that you must earn your rest, or that peace is a prize you collect after you have successfully balanced your mental ledger. But imagine that rest is not something you obtain, but something you allow to emerge when you finally take your hand away from the door. You have been keeping a frantic internal workshop open for hours, lights blazing, hammers hitting, voices debating, all in an effort to prepare for a tomorrow that has not yet been written. You are allowed to turn off the lights. You are allowed to walk out of the workshop and leave the tools where they lie. Tonight, we will look toward a mountain stream that is cold and clear, and we will watch a young monk who, much like you, once thought he could build a wall against the flow of his own existence. As we walk through this story, do not try to find the moral immediately. Do not try to analyze the lesson to make sure you have understood it correctly. Just let the rhythm of the words be the only sound you follow. Let the story carry your awareness, so your thoughts can finally begin to lose their urgency. Like birds that have realized there is no more food to be found, and who begin to look for the horizon, and who begin to look for the sky. You are exactly where you are meant to be. There is nothing to do, nothing to fix, and nowhere else that you need to go. High in the northern range, where the air is thin and sharp as a polished blade, there lived a young monk named Kaito. He was a man of great dedication, tasked with the care of the mountain stream that fed the temple below. It was a beautiful, rushing body of water that tumbled over moss-covered stones and cleared the path for the mountain's descent. But Kaito felt he was failing. Every autumn, the mountain shed its skin. Thousands of golden, amber, and crimson leaves drifted down from the maples and birches. Landing in the stream, they clogged the narrow stone chutes, and they piled up in the quiet pools, turning the clear water into a stagnant brown slurry. Kaito worried constantly. If the stream became blocked, the temple would be without fresh water. If the water grew muddy, the tea for the masters would taste of earth and decay. So, Kaito spent his days in a state of frantic movement. He carried a long bamboo rake, moving from one pool to the next with a speed that left him breathless. He pulled out the leaves, piles upon piles of them, stacking them on the banks until they grew as high as his shoulders. But the wind would blow, the branches would shake, and a fresh wave of leaves would descend. It seemed to Kaito that the stream was being destroyed by the very mountain it served. He grew thinner with the passing weeks. His face was etched with the strain of watching the water, his ears constantly tuned to the sound of the splash of a falling leaf. He could not sit for meditation without hearing the splash. He could not eat his rice without wondering if a blockage had formed downstream. He had become the servant of the leaves and the master of the stream, and the burden was beginning to break his spirit. One afternoon, his teacher, an old man whose face was wrinkled like the bark of a mountain pine, came to sit by the water's edge. The teacher did not offer to help. He simply watched, his hands tucked deep into the folds of his grey robe, his eyes tracking the movement of a single, vibrant maple leaf as it spiraled through the air and landed with a soft, persistent thud against the water's surface. Kaito was panting, his rake held like a weapon. He had cleared that section only moments before, and already a new cluster of leaves was drifting toward the gap. He looked at his teacher, his chest heaving, his fingers raw and trembling from the rough bamboo handle. He wanted the master to see his diligence. He wanted the master to see how hard he was fighting to keep the water pure. The teacher did not look at Kaito. He looked at the water. He picked up a smooth, heavy stone from the bank, a round piece of granite, worn soft by centuries of flow. He stood up, and with a slow, deliberate motion, he walked to the center of the narrow stone channel. Kaito watched, confused, as the teacher placed the stone not in a way that blocked the stream, but in a way that diverted the current. The water hit the stone and swirled, creating a new, faster arc. Then the teacher turned to Kaito and pointed to the stream. He did not speak. He pointed to the way the water moved around the stone, and then he pointed to the bank where Kaito had piled the mountains of dead, soggy leaves. The teacher took the rake from Kaito's hand, but he did not use it to clear the stream. Instead, he reached into the pile of debris, pulled out a handful of the wet leaves, and let them scatter back into the water. Kaito felt a surge of panic. The water would be ruined. The temple would suffer. But as he watched, the new current, guided by the stone, caught the leaves and pulled them away from the edges, dragging them swiftly over the lip of the waterfall and down into the valley. Below, they did not settle. They did not stagnate. They simply moved, carried by the very force Kaito had been trying so hard to contain. The teacher set the rake down on the moss, turned, and walked back up the mountain path, without a single word. Kaito remained standing there, the silence of the mountain suddenly pressing against his ears. He had spent weeks trying to stop the mountain from shedding its leaves. He had been trying to stop the season from turning. He had been working as if he were the owner of the river, as if his frantic movement was the only thing standing between the temple and a drought. But the water had a will of its own, and the mountain had a cycle of its own, and all Kaito had succeeded in doing was exhausting himself. He looked at the stone. It was simple, quiet, and solid. It did not try to hold the leaves. It did not try to judge the leaves. It only changed the way the water met them. The water was flowing clearer than it had been in days. The rake lay in the grass, and for the first time, Kaito did not feel the need to pick it up. The wind blew, shaking the trees, and more leaves descended. A golden rain falling into the cold, rushing water. Kaito watched them go. He watched them spiral, land, and vanish in the flow. He took a breath, and for the first time in his life, as a monk, he noticed the smell of the damp earth, the chill of the air, and the way the light hit the ripples in the pool. He was still standing by the stream, but he was no longer a servant to the debris. He was just a witness to the movement. This was not a grand moment of enlightenment. It was a small, quiet change in the way he stood. He was still tired, his body still aching from the days of heavy, unnecessary labor, but the frantic ticking in his chest had slowed. He sat down on the moss, his hands relaxing on his knees. He looked at the pile of leaves he had gathered, and he realized he did not have to move them. He did not have to justify why he had gathered them. He did not have to fix the bank. He could just be there while the water did what it had been doing for 1,000 years. The realization did not hit him like a lightning bolt. It was a slow, creeping warmth, like the rising of the sun behind the peak. He had been carrying the stream on his shoulders. He had been holding the mountain's weight in his mind. He had thought that if he were not worried, the river would stop. But the river was indifferent to his worry, and in that indifference, Kaito found a strange, heavy, and beautiful kind of freedom. He did not need to be the keeper of the stream. He only needed to be a person who lived beside it, turning the gold of the leaves into a deep, bruised purple. Kaito closed his eyes. The splash of the leaves against the water had not stopped. The birds of his thoughts, the frantic concerns about the temple, and the masters were still circling, still calling out. But Kaito was not running with his rake. He was not trying to catch them. He was just sitting there, allowing the cold air to touch his face and allowing the sound of the stream to fill the space. Where his panic had been, the first lesson had been given. Not in a speech, but in the simple, wet, and honest movement of the water. You are like Kaito, dear friend, standing by your own stream, trying to rake away the thoughts that fall like leaves. You think that if you do not catch the worry before it lands, the water will grow dark. You believe that your exhaustion is the price of keeping your life clean. But look at how you have been holding the rake. Look at how your hands have tightened, even as you lie there, trying to find rest. The stream is already flowing. The thoughts are already arriving. You do not need to rake them out of your mind to be worthy of the peace that exists in the stillness. You only need to learn how to change the way you stand so the current can do its own work and you can finally find the space to sit. This story is not asking you to become a stone that feels nothing, nor is it suggesting that the leaves are unimportant. The temple needed water, just as your life needs your attention, your care, and your heart. The struggle Kaito faced was not in the falling of the leaves, which was a natural part of the mountain's life. The struggle was in his conviction that he was the only thing preventing a catastrophe. He had mistaken his own frantic, raking mind for the power that kept the stream alive. He was adding a second layer of exhaustion to the natural process of the seasons, and this second layer, the layer of his own self-imposed burden, was the true source of his suffering. When we look at our own lives, we often find ourselves holding the same bamboo rake. We have a worry, a concern, or a regret, and we treat it as if it were a dam threatening to flood our entire existence. We think that if we stop thinking about the problem for even a moment, the situation will deteriorate. We believe that our constant mental agitation is the cost of keeping things together. But notice what happens when you hold the rake this tightly. You lose the ability to see the stream as it actually is. You stop seeing the water and you only see the debris. You stop hearing the rhythm of the mountain and you only hear the sound of your own frantic movement. The Buddhist wisdom here is not about ignoring your life. It is not about walking away from your duties or pretending that the difficult parts of your journey do not exist. It is about recognizing the difference between the actual events of your life and the internal noise you create around them. The stream is the reality of your day, the things you must do, the feelings you have, and the challenges you face. These are the leaves that fall. They are part of the landscape, but the rake is the mind's attempt to control the uncontrollable, the desperate repetitive need to make sure everything is handled, analyzed, and solved before it can even touch the water. You have been told, perhaps by the world, or perhaps by your own fear, that to stop the raking is to be irresponsible. You feel that if you let go of the handle, you are giving up. But the old teacher did not tell Kaito to stop serving the temple. He only showed him how to stop serving the leaves. He taught him that the water has its own intelligence, its own path, and its own way of clearing the way forward if only the rake is laid aside. Your mind, too, has a capacity for clarity that is much deeper than your anxious, repetitive thoughts. When you stop trying to clear every thought, every worry, and every fear by force, you allow the natural flow of your own awareness to return. Think of how much of your day is spent rehearsing the future, trying to account for every single leaf that might fall, every conversation that might go wrong, and every task that might remain undone. This is not preparation. This is a form of suffering that lives entirely in the imagination. You are standing on the bank of the present, but your mind is miles away, raking through scenarios that have not happened and may never happen. This is the second wound. The first wound is the challenge itself, the reality that leaves fall and life brings difficulties. The second wound is the belief that you must be the one to orchestrate the entire mountain all by yourself, without ever taking a breath. This teaching invites you to notice the rake in your hand. How heavy does it feel right now? How much energy have you expended today just by trying to manage the flow of your own concerns? You have been working so hard to protect the purity of your life, but in doing so, you have only made it feel muddied and stagnant. It is safe to lay the rake down. You are not abandoning your life. You are simply giving your mind permission to become the mountain stream again, flowing, moving, and trusting that the water knows how to find its way. The stream does not need you to tell it how to flow. Your life does not need you to narrate every moment of it to stay in motion. You may find that when you first let go of the rake, the thoughts come back in a rush. They will call out for your attention. They will remind you of everything that needs to be done. They will tell you that you are being lazy, or that you are being reckless, or that you are failing. These are just more leaves. They are not commands. They are not warnings you must obey. They are simply events passing through the space of your mind. You do not have to pick them up. You do not have to move them to the bank. You only have to watch them move and let them go as the water carries them away. It is a subtle shift, this movement from master of the river to witness of the stream. It requires a great deal of courage, not because it is difficult, but because it feels so contrary to what we have been trained to believe. We are trained to believe that we must be the active, forceful, and constant designers of our own peace. We are trained to think that if we are not working, we are not growing. But true wisdom, the kind that settles in the bones and breathes in the heart, is much quieter than that. It knows that growth happens in the stillness, and that healing begins the moment we stop fighting the nature of the season. The leaves will continue to fall. The maples will continue to shed their gold. Your life will continue to present you with moments that require your attention and your care. But there is a world of difference between holding a rake in a state of panic and sitting on the moss in a state of awareness. One is a life of constant battle, where you are always running, always tired, and always afraid. The other is a life of steady presence, where you can feel the rain on your skin, smell the dampness of the earth, and know that you are part of something much larger, much older, and much more capable of handling the flow than your own anxious mind. Take a breath and feel the weight of your own body. You are not a machine meant to process the world into order. You are a human being, a part of the mountain, a part of the stream, and a part of the night. It is okay to be tired. It is okay to have leaves piling up in your mind. You do not have to clear them all tonight. You do not have to build a wall against the changing seasons. The peace you are looking for is already here, resting in the space between the thoughts, waiting for you to notice that you are allowed to stop working. You have been carrying the mountain on your back, and your shoulders are aching for the relief of the earth. When the thoughts return, and they will, do not judge yourself for being human. Do not add a third wound of shame to the two you are already carrying. Just notice that the rake is in your hand again, and gently, with the same calm you would use to set down a glass of water, let it rest in the grass. This is the practice. It is not about reaching a final destination where no more leaves fall. It is about how quickly you can recognize that you are raking and how gently you can choose to witness the water instead. This is the path of the mountain, and it is the only one you are being asked to walk tonight. There is a deep, quiet intelligence in you that has been waiting for this permission. It has been buried under the piles of leaves, waiting for the rake to be discarded so it could breathe again. As we move further into the night, we will look toward another inn, a place where a traveler was once haunted by the noise of his own expectations, and we will see how he finally learned to stop unlocking the door for guests who were not truly there. For now, just allow yourself to feel the ground beneath you. Let the room be a container for your rest, and let your mind realize that for these few hours, you are not responsible for the falling of the leaves. You are simply here, and that is enough. Now, let us bring this insight into your own experience, not as a mental exercise, but as a gentle way to rest. You do not need to change your posture, and you do not need to achieve a special state of mind. Simply allow yourself to be exactly as you are, a traveler who has walked a long way and has finally found a place to sit by the water. If it feels right, notice the weight of your body pressing into the surface beneath you. Feel the way your muscles are beginning to release their long-held tension, not because you are forcing them to relax, but because you are no longer asking them to hold up the sky. Imagine for a moment that your mind is that high mountain stream we spoke of earlier. Your thoughts are the leaves that fall. For so long, you have been standing in the water with your bamboo rake, trying to keep the surface clear, trying to make sure no debris accumulates, trying to ensure the flow remains perfect. But tonight, I want to invite you to do something very different. I want to invite you to step out of the water. Imagine yourself stepping onto the mossy bank, and for the first time, simply setting the rake down on the grass. You do not have to watch the water. You do not have to manage the flow. You do not have to justify why you have stopped raking. Now, bring your attention to the noise that has been circling in your mind. Is there a specific concern that feels heavy? Perhaps it is a task you fear you will forget, or a conversation you are replaying, or a vague, shapeless sense of pressure about your life. Do not try to push it away. Do not try to solve it. Simply name it, silently, in the quiet space of your own heart. Call it by its name. Maybe you call it the worry of the future, or the echo of the past, or the demand to be perfect. As you name it, see it clearly, not as a monster that could destroy you, but as a single leaf drifting toward your stream. It is just a leaf. It is not the mountain. It is not the river. It is just a thought, a momentary movement in the vastness of your consciousness. You might see it spinning in the air, golden and light, or perhaps it looks dark and sodden. It does not matter. The only thing that matters is that you notice it. When you feel the familiar urge to reach for your rake, when you feel that sharp, automatic tightening in your chest that says you must intervene, acknowledge that impulse, notice it, feel it, and then choose to stay on the bank. You can even imagine your hand opening, letting the handle of the rake slip from your fingers, resting in the soft, damp moss. Watch the leaf as it touches the water. Does it sink? Does it float? Does the current take it? You are not responsible for where it goes. You are not responsible for ensuring it does not clog the channel. You are only the witness. You are the one who is finally, truly, watching the mountain from the shore. If your mind begins to protest, if a new thought appears, urgent and loud, claiming that you must act, treat it with the same gentle curiosity. That thought is just another leaf. It is not a command. It is not a truth. It is just an event, passing through the space of your awareness. You may find that your mind feels very busy tonight, and that is perfectly all right. There is no requirement that your mind should be empty, and there is no standard you must reach to be deserving of this rest. Even noticing that you are thinking is a profound act of awareness. Every time you realize you have picked up the rake, you have successfully stepped out of the stream, that realization is the practice. It is not about never having thoughts. It is about how many times you are willing to notice them and then choose to let them go. You are doing exactly what you need to be doing. As you breathe, feel the coolness of the mountain air on your skin. You are becoming as still as the stone the master placed in the water. That stone did not worry about the leaves. It did not try to hold the stream in place. It simply sat there, solid and present, and by its very presence, it changed the way the water moved. You are that stone tonight. You are the quiet, immovable center of your own life. You are not the movement of the thoughts. You are the stillness that allows the thoughts to move. If you feel a sense of guilt for not working, for not solving, for not raking, let that guilt be a leaf too. Place it in the water. Watch it float. Notice how it moves, changing shape, rotating, and eventually disappearing into the distance. It is not a sign of failure. It is a sign of your humanity. You are human, and you have spent a long time believing you were the owner of the river. But tonight, you are learning that the river belongs to the mountain, and you belong to the stillness. You are not in charge of the seasons. You are only here to witness the light as it shifts across the peak. Take another slow, soft breath and feel your ribcage expanding and contracting. There is a natural intelligence in your lungs, in your blood, in the way your body rests. You do not have to think about how to breathe, and you do not have to think about how to heal. Your body is already doing the work of resting for you. You have been carrying the burden of your mind's control, but you can let that go now. The world will continue to spin while you sleep. The leaves will continue to fall while you rest. The stream will continue to find its way down the mountain, guided by its own ancient, quiet path. You are not leaving anything unfinished that cannot wait until morning. You are not abandoning your life. You are simply giving your heart the space it needs to be quiet, so that when you wake, you might be a little more grounded, a little more spacious, and a little less attached to the rake. There is such relief in this. It is the relief of a long, hard winter coming to an end. It is the feeling of finally putting down a weight you didn't even realize you were carrying. You are safe. You are held by the earth, and you are part of the very stream you have been trying so hard to manage. As we move toward the second story, a tale of a merchant who once found his inn overrun by the noise of his own expectations, tried to let go of the need to be anywhere else, but right here. You don't have to feel a sudden magical shift, even if your thoughts are still rushing, even if the leaves are still falling thick and fast. You are still doing it right. You are here. You are noticing. And you are resting. And for now, that is the most important thing you could possibly do. Just stay on the bank. Keep your hands in your lap and watch the water move noticing how, despite all your fears, the stream continues to find its way, clear and cool and free, far across the desert. Near the edge of a dry and silent canyon, there stood an inn known for its solitude. It was run by a man named Elias, a merchant who had spent his youth chasing shadows in the marketplace and his middle years chasing peace in the desert. He was not a monk, and he had no formal training in the ways of the mind. He simply had an inn, and he had a mind that was as crowded as a city bazaar. Elias was plagued by what he called the uninvited guests. These were not travelers who arrived at his door, but the thoughts, worries, and fears that arrived unbidden in his mind. Every evening, as the desert sun dipped behind the jagged horizon, painting the sky in shades of violet and bruised orange, Elias would prepare his dining hall. He would set tables, arrange chairs, and prepare tea, and then he would wait for the internal noise. To begin, they would arrive. These uninvited guests. They would arrive as arguments he had lost, as investments he had failed to make, as faces of people he had disappointed, and as dark predictions about the coming winter. Elias believed it was his duty to host them. He believed that if he sat them down, listened to their grievances, and served them the tea of his constant attention, they would eventually thank him and leave. But they never left. They only brought friends. The hall of his mind grew rowdier by the hour, until the clamour became so loud he could no longer sleep. He would pace his kitchen, his hands clenching a wooden serving ladle as if it were a shield. He was exhausted. He was losing his health, and one night, when the internal shouting of his thoughts felt so loud, he could hear it echoing in the empty hallway of his inn. A nomadic traveller knocked at the heavy iron-banded door. The traveller wore dusty robes and carried only a simple wooden walking stick. He asked for nothing but a place to sit for a few minutes. Elias let him in, grateful for a distraction from his own frantic head. They sat in the small, dim parlour, and Elias, unable to hold it in, began to vent. He told the traveller about the guests. He explained how he had tried to accommodate every worry, how he had served every fear with his focus, and how he had done everything in his power to keep the peace. He showed the traveller his hands, which were shaking with the remnants of his daily struggle. The traveller listened, his face as still as the desert sands after the wind has died down. He did not offer pity. He did not offer a way to get rid of the guests. He simply asked a question. He asked, "Elias, who invited them?" Elias stared at him. He said, "I do not know, but they are here, and they demand service." The traveller nodded, stood up, and walked over to the door of the dining hall. He did not go inside. He simply reached out and drew the heavy latch across. Then he looked at Elias and said, "These guests possess no keys to your house. They only possess the keys you have given them. You have been walking through the hallways, unlocking every door, lighting every lamp, and setting a place at every table, all for shadows that were only passing by your doorstep." The traveller told Elias to imagine the inn as if it were simply a place of rest and not a place of business. He told him that when the next thought arrived, claiming to be an important guest, Elias should simply observe the door. He should not throw it open. He should not lock it with anger. He should simply leave it shut. If the guest knocked, Elias could hear the knock. But he did not have to stand up. He did not have to unlock the door. He did not have to set the table. He could stay exactly where he was, in the quiet of his own chair, while the guest eventually grew tired and wandered back into the desert night. That night, Elias sat in his chair, his hands resting on his knees. He did not pace. He did not clutch the ladle. When the first thought arrived, claiming his attention, Elias felt the automatic urge to jump up and set a place for it. He felt the familiar pull of the habit, the deep, reflexive need to solve, to worry, to engage, but he remembered the latch. He remembered the traveller's voice. He breathed. He did not unlock the door. He sat in the silence, listening to the knock, feeling the weight of the urge to respond, and simply allowed himself to be the person who stayed in the chair. It was not an easy transition. The knocking was persistent. It felt like an intrusion, like a violation of his duty as a host. His mind told him that if he did not serve the thought, he was failing. It told him he was being rude or that he was neglecting a crisis. But Elias did not move. He felt the tension in his stomach, the heat in his chest, and he watched them, not with judgment, but with a growing, cold clarity. They were just guests. They were not the inn. They were not the host. They were just passing through. Hours passed, and the desert grew colder. The knocking eventually slowed, then became rhythmic, then faded altogether. The hall was quiet. For the first time in many years, the silence was not a vacuum he needed to fill, but a companion he could share. He realized then that he had been the one creating the chaos all along. He had been the one providing the welcome. He had been the one making the noise. The realization was subtle. It did not make him a master of the universe. It only made him a master of his own chair. He did not stop thinking, and he did not become a saint. He still had days when he opened the door, and he still had nights when the guests felt heavy and demanding. But he had learned the difference between the knock and the need to answer. He had learned the difference between the presence of a thought and the invitation of a guest. He had learned to sit in the quiet of his own home, with the doors firmly shut, and to let the desert night be exactly what it was. He was finally, in the truest sense of the word, at rest. You are like Elias, standing in the foyer of your own inn, clutching the keys. You think you are a servant to your thoughts, that you are obligated to open the door to every passing fear, every looming worry, every shadow that pauses on your porch. But you are not a servant to the desert. You are the owner of the inn, and you have the right, the absolute and quiet right, to sit in your chair tonight and let the doors remain shut. You do not have to know who is outside. You do not have to make sure they are fed. You only have to stay in your own chair, feeling the weight of your own body and listening to the silence of the night. The guests may knock, and that is all right. They are just guests, and they have no power over your house unless you decide to unlock the latch. You are beginning to understand that the noise does not come from the desert, and it does not come from the guests. It comes from the movement of your own hand toward the lock. You are learning to keep your hands still. You are learning to keep your heart closed to the noise and open to the rest. This is a transformation that does not need a trumpet. It happens in the quiet of a dark room, in the slow rhythm of a breath, and in the small firm choice to stop inviting the storm inside. As you lie here, feel the boundaries of your own space. You are in your room, and you are safe, and the doors are shut. Outside, the world may be full of rushing air, of thoughts, of demands, and of endless cycles of concern. Let them stay outside. You have nothing for them tonight. You have no tea to serve, no chairs to arrange, and no latch to lift. You are here to be the host of your own peace, and you are doing a fine job of it, simply by staying where you are, breathing, softening, and letting the night settle around you like a cool, velvet blanket. that asks nothing in return. The noise that once felt like a command from the universe is beginning to reveal itself as nothing more than a habit of your own construction. You have spent so long believing that your internal state must mirror the complexity of your external responsibilities, that you have forgotten how to exist without a project. This is the great trap of the thinking mind. It convinces you that if you are not actively navigating the future or carefully cataloguing the past, you are somehow exposed to danger. It wraps your identity in the struggle, turning your very survival into a performance of endless mental labor. But consider the mountain peak. It does not need to believe in its own height to remain above the clouds. It does not need to justify its stillness. You feel that if you stop rehearsing the worst-case scenarios, the world will catch you off guard. You worry that if you stop replaying the errors of yesterday, you will be doomed to repeat them. This is the mechanism of resistance. It is the belief that by agonizing over the potential for suffering, you are somehow inoculating yourself against it. But look at your hands. Look at how they have been held in a state of perpetual bracing, waiting for a blow that never lands, or perhaps a blow that has already passed. Yet, you are still holding the shield. The extra suffering you carry is not the weight of the mountain itself. It is the weight of the armor you have fashioned to protect yourself from the wind. The first kind of pain is the reality of the season. It is the cold air, the falling leaves, the inevitable change of circumstances that comes to every living creature. This pain is not optional, and it is not a sign that you have done something wrong. It is simply the friction of being alive. But the second kind of pain is the one you have been adding to your own journey. It is the judgment you place upon your emotions. It is the shame you feel when you are tired. It is the desperate, frantic need to control the outcome of every situation before it has even had the space to breathe. This second pain is an invitation you keep sending to your own heart, and it is the only pain that you truly have the power to decline. Imagine you are standing in the middle of a wide open field, and you are trying to hold back the tide of the ocean with a small wooden scoop. You believe that if you do not scoop fast enough, the field will be lost. You scoop until your arms burn. You scoop until your back aches, and you panic every time a wave reaches your feet. You believe your scooping is the reason the field exists. But the ocean is going to ebb and flow, whether you have a scoop in your hand or not. Your resistance is not stopping the tide. It is only ensuring that you are miserable while the tide moves in. The peace you seek is not found by building a better scoop, and it is not found by finding a faster way to bail out the sea. It is found by dropping the tool and realizing that the field of your own existence was never yours to hold back. We often turn our pain into an identity because it is the only thing we feel we have mastered. If you have been worried for as long as you can remember, your anxiety begins to feel like a part of your character. You might even find yourself defending your need to worry, telling yourself that it is simply who you are. This is the trick of the mind. It wants to keep you small because it feels safe, and it uses your history of struggle as evidence that you must stay on guard. But your history is not your present. Your past experiences are like ghosts that have lost their way, yet you continue to set a place for them at every meal. When you feel the urge to judge your own reactions, try to see that judgment as a separate layer, a thin, bitter coating over the actual feeling. If you are sad, the sadness is just the weather. If you add to that the thought that you shouldn't be sad, or that you are weak for feeling this way. You have doubled the weight. The sadness is the mountain, but the judgment is the heavy, rusted chain you are wrapping around your own chest. You do not need to be strong enough to never feel sad. You only need to be brave enough to feel it, without telling yourself a story about why it makes you a failure. The need for approval is another ghost that haunts the halls of your inn. You have been waiting for someone or something to validate your right to be at peace. You think that if you achieve enough, or fix enough, or present a version of yourself that is perfectly handled and composed, then, and only then, will the noise stop. But the noise does not stop because you have satisfied the demands of the world. It stops when you recognize that the demands were never addressed to you, but to the version of you that you were trying to manufacture. The one who is sitting in the chair tonight has always been enough. The real you does not need the approval of the shadows. It takes great courage to sit in uncertainty. It feels like you are falling, but you are actually just learning how to be in the air. The mind wants to fill the space of the unknown with plans, because plans feel like anchors, but an anchor is only useful if you are trying to stay in the same place. Your life is not meant to be static. Your life is meant to be a flow, a constant unfolding, and your resistance to that unfolding is what creates the tension in your jaw and the tightness in your heart. You can stop looking for the answer. You can stop hunting for the secret to making everything permanent. The secret is that everything is already changing, and that is not a tragedy. It is the very thing that makes this moment possible. If you are currently replaying an interaction where you feel you could have done better, look at the way you are holding that memory. Are you treating it as a lesson to be integrated, or as a crime to be punished? If you are treating it as a crime, you are only punishing the person you are today for the actions of someone who had less wisdom, less rest, and less awareness than you do right now. Forgive the person you were. That person was doing the best they could with the tools they had. You have a new set of tools now. You have the stillness, you have the silence, and you have the permission to set the rake down. The goal is not to become a void that reacts to nothing. It is to become a consciousness that experiences everything without losing its center. You are the host of the inn, and you are also the traveler who walks through the lobby. You can experience the warmth of the tea and the chill of the desert air. You can acknowledge the arrival of a concern without needing to turn it into a crisis. You are learning that your inner landscape is vast, deep, and inherently resilient. It does not break because of a passing thought, and it does not vanish because of a temporary stress. You have been working so hard to make sure everything is just right. You have been checking the doors, lighting the lamps, and smoothing the rugs, all while your heart was begging for the chance to sit down. Tonight, realize that the room is already prepared. The light is soft enough. The silence is deep enough. You have been trying to make the world safe for your mind, but the world was already safe for your soul. You are allowed to be tired. You are allowed to be in the middle unfinished. You are allowed to be in the middle of a story that you do not yet know the ending to. This is the path of the mountain. It does not ask the trees to grow faster, and it does not ask the rain to change its course. It simply stands through the clarity and through the fog, holding the space for the cycle. You are part of that cycle. You are not a machine meant to produce perfection. You are a living, breathing expression of the universe, and your primary work is not to fix your thoughts, but to be the space in which they can exist without ruling you. You are doing this work right now, simply by listening, by breathing, and by letting the second wound begin to heal. Notice that the fear of the future is just another thought. Notice that the regret of the past is just another ghost. Neither of them has the power to reach you here, in the stillness of your own room, unless you reach out and invite them in. You are not trapped in your mental rehearsal. You are free to stand up and walk away from the stage. You are free to leave the doors locked. You are free to simply exist, without the burden of being the architect of your own experience. The stillness is waiting for you, and it has no demands. It is the most hospitable place you have ever visited, and it is the one place where you have always been, even when you were running in the other direction. This practice does not exist only in the quiet of a mountain tea hut or the stillness of a weaver's workshop. It is meant for the kitchen light at midnight, the glow of your phone screen, and the crowded transit of your workday. You might be sitting there, feeling the familiar hum of anxiety as you wait for a text message that signifies approval. Or perhaps you are lying in bed, your mind running through a list of what you failed to finish today. When that tight, familiar need to be in control rises up, see it for what it is. It is the urge to reach for a stone, to fill your hands with the heavy, cold iron of worry, because you are afraid of being empty-handed in the face of uncertainty. You do not need to discard your responsibilities, and you do not need to stop caring about your life. But notice what happens when you catch yourself checking your phone for reassurance. For the 5th time in an hour, you are not checking for information. You are checking to see if the weight you are carrying is still there, or if the world has shifted in a way you did not authorize. In that pause, before your thumb hits the screen, you can choose to set the stone down. You can breathe, feel your feet on the floor, and realize that even without the confirmation you were seeking, the room is still steady and you are still breathing. When you feel that familiar pang of comparison, looking at the lives of others, and feeling as though your own tapestry is frayed and uneven, recognize the instinct to reach for your shears, that urge to edit yourself, to trim away your own vulnerabilities so you can present a version of yourself that seems perfect, is a way of holding the iron box. It is an exhausting way to exist. You are not a tapestry that needs to be perfect to be worthy. You are the weaver, and the beauty of your life is found in the texture of the threads you have lived. When you feel the sting of shame or the pressure to be more than you are, allow yourself to pause. You are allowed to be a work in progress. You are allowed to leave the frayed threads as they are. There are moments in the day when the weight becomes almost unbearable. Maybe you are at your desk, or in a meeting, or driving through the city, and you feel the sudden, overwhelming desire to solve every problem. At once, you feel the need to rehearse what you will say to someone, or to play back a conversation from 3 years ago. Your mind is like a bird that has forgotten how to land. It is flying in circles, burning its energy to keep the sky from falling. In those moments, you do not need to fix the bird. You only need to notice the branch. Find the sensation of your body in the chair or the feeling of your hands on the steering wheel, and let your focus drop from the mental theater of your worries into the physical reality of the present. The guilt of resting is one of the heaviest stones you carry. You might find yourself sitting on the couch after a long day, but your mind is busy calculating what you should have done better, or what you need to do first thing tomorrow. You are physically resting, but your hands are still clenched around the imaginary box of tasks. You are not truly resting because you believe you have not earned it, but you do not earn your right to exist, and you do not earn your right to be still. The mountain does not have to justify its stillness to the valley. You are part of the world, and you are entitled to the same permission to be quiet as the trees and the stars. When you feel the need to smile and pretend that you are perfectly fine, even when you feel the heavy iron of exhaustion in your bones, you are adding another layer of armor to your burden. It is okay to admit that you are tired. It is okay to let the mask soften, even if only in the privacy of your own heart. You do not need to be the person who holds the world up for everyone else. Sometimes, the most compassionate thing you can do for the people you love is to stop carrying their potential weights for them and, instead, show them what it looks like to be human and at peace with your own fallibility. Every time you choose to sit with uncertainty, rather than rushing to cover it with a plan, you are practicing the art of the open palm. When you are waiting for news, or sitting with a problem that has no immediate solution, notice the physical sensation of the weight. Does your chest tighten? Do you hold your breath? These are the moments where the iron stones appear. You are trying to fill the silence of the unknown with the noise of your own control. Practice simply noticing the silence. It is not empty. It is spacious, and within that space, there is room for you to exist without needing to explain, justify, or solve. You will forget this, of course. You will find yourself back in the habit of gripping, your hands white and aching, your mind racing through the dark. Do not be hard on yourself when this happens. That judgment is just one more stone, one more thing to place in the wooden box and set aside. The practice is not about never picking up a stone again. It is about how quickly you notice that you are holding one, and how gently you are willing to let it go. You are learning a new way of walking through your life, one where you trust that your own heart is resilient enough to handle what comes, even without the heavy, rusted shield of your anxiety. Think of your life as a series of small, unfolding scenes. You do not have to be the director. You are the one who is witnessing the play. When you realize that the scenes will happen whether you are tense or relaxed, you are gifted the opportunity to choose your experience. You can experience the rush of the workday with a clenched jaw, or you can experience it with a breath of perspective. You can experience the night with a mind full of replays, or you can experience it as the quiet, dark space you were given for the specific purpose of forgetting the day. The modern world is designed to make you feel as though you are never doing enough, never being enough, and never safe enough. It is designed to keep you reaching for stones. When you feel that pull, turn it into a reminder. Use the feeling of pressure as a trigger to remember the tea hut and the weaver. Use it as a signal that it is time to set the bag down. You are building a sanctuary within yourself that the noise of the world cannot penetrate unless you choose to invite it in. Tonight, you are closing the gate to that sanctuary. You are turning the lock, not to keep the world out, but to give yourself the quiet, empty space you need to remember who you are when you are not working, not planning, and not trying to hold the stars in your hands. The mountain stream is quieting now. The light that once felt harsh and demanding has softened into the deep, cool blue of the high-altitude night. You have stood on the bank for a long time, watching the leaves drift by, and you have felt the heavy iron handle of the rake finally slip from your fingers. That weight is not yours to carry into the dark. You can let it rest on the moss, abandoned and forgotten, as the water continues its ancient, unhurried journey toward the valley floor. Your hands are empty, and for this moment, they are free. Feel the way your body is settling into the earth. It is not an act of surrender to stop struggling, but an act of deep, quiet wisdom. You are like the stone in the center of the current. You do not need to move to influence the water. You do not need to speak to influence the night. You simply exist, solid and present. And in that existence, the stream finds its own way around you. There is no more need to clear the channel. There is no more need to prepare for the morning. The mountain knows how to hold its own weight. And tonight, you are allowed to lean against it, trusting that it will not let you fall. The air in the room is still. It carries the scent of damp earth and cooling stone, a fragrance that speaks of ancient things, of roots and rocks, and the slow turn of the seasons. Your breathing is deepening, mirroring the rhythm of the water outside. It is slow, regular, and unforced. You are no longer trying to control the pace of your own life. You are simply allowing the breath to come and go, like the mist that settles into the crevices of the canyon at midnight. You are becoming part of the landscape, part of the quiet, and part of the vastness that does not ask for answers. Everything you were worried about is still there, but it is no longer yours to manage. The tasks you left unfinished are merely leaves. The people you were trying to protect are under the same moon. The future you were trying to design is already unfolding, and it does not need your frantic supervision to reach its destination. You can release your grip on the imaginary reins. You can stop, scanning the horizon for storms that have not yet arrived. The night is a safe harbor, and the gates of your own inner inn are locked, quiet, and secure against the noise of the world. Think of the rake, lying there in the grass. It is just a tool, a wooden frame and metal teeth, and it has no power unless you reach out to claim it. Tonight, your hands are soft. Your fingers are uncurled. You have set down the instrument of your own exhaustion, and you are choosing to sit on the bank, watching the water ripple in the starlight. This is the place of true rest. It is not a place where you have conquered your thoughts, but a place where you have stopped fighting them. You have allowed them to be what they are, and in that allowance, they have lost their urgency. The stream is murmuring as it flows over the rocks. It sounds like a secret, a soft, repetitive promise that everything is already moving toward balance. You don't have to listen for words. You don't have to listen for warnings. You only have to listen to the sound of the flow, to the way the water moves through the dark, trusting in its own momentum, its own intelligence, and its own destination. You are a part of that momentum. You are a part of that intelligence. The rest you are experiencing now is the result of your decision to stop holding the mountain together with your own two hands. There is a profound sense of return here, as if you have been a traveler, wandering through a desert, carrying your luggage of worries, only to arrive at your own front door. You are opening it now. You are walking into the quiet hallway of your own heart. Everything is dim and cool and peaceful. There is no fire to tend, no guest to feed, and no door to unlock. You are just here. You are the host and the guest, the traveler and the home, the movement of the stream and the stillness of the bank. You are everything you have been searching for, and you are finally still enough to notice it. The night is deep, and the stars are caught in the surface of the pool. They do not worry about falling. They do not worry about the reflection. They simply are. You are becoming like that reflection, light and airy, suspended in the quiet, watching the world drift by without needing to touch it. Your muscles are heavy, sinking into the warmth of the bed, feeling the gentle support of the mattress, the earth, and the night. You are being held. You are being supported by a reality much larger than your own anxiety, and you can let go now. There is no risk in resting. There is only the relief of the season finally arriving at its end. If a stray thought arrives, like a single leaf touching the surface, you do not have to chase it. You do not have to scoop it out. You can watch it ripple through the water and vanish. It is just a movement. It is just a ripple. It is not an instruction for your life. It is not a call to action. It is only the night, breathing, and you are breathing with it. The rake is far away. The gate is locked, and the mountain is vast and silent and sure. You have done the work of coming home, and now the house is yours to enjoy. Is it possible that the peace you have been chasing in every errand and every worry was the very thing that remained, silent and patient, every time you finally stopped to breathe?